Hello, I'm Darren again. The topic for today's video comes from the questions, did the narcissist ever love me, or can narcissists love? Well, there are different kinds of love. There's the love someone could feel for their friends. There's the love someone might have for their family, their parents, siblings, even their children. Then there's the kind of love someone could feel for a partner. And it's that kind of love that I will be referring to in this video. Now, if you are in or have been in a relationship with a narcissistic person, given how they behaved, given how they may have treated you, the natural response might be to just say no. However, it's not that easy to give a definitive answer, as we can never fully know what's really going on in someone's head. And also, narcissism can be quite complex. It's on a spectrum. Some people can have traits, mild traits. Some people can have very strong traits, but not necessarily a personality disorder. Some of those traits can be quite mild, meaning perhaps they're just self-absorbed. But on the other end of that spectrum, you might have someone who's very manipulative, quite malignant, and sometimes outright wicked and sadistic. Just because a person may have narcissistic traits does not mean they don't or can't love. That being said, it is possible they have a limited capacity to love, or maybe they love for selfish reasons. So what do we mean by love? Well, I think love is not just something you feel for someone, it is something you do. Even just small gestures, you look tired, go have a rest, I'll sort this out. It could be respecting and remembering something that is really important to the other person. There is individual as well as joint responsibility in a relationship. There's give and take, negotiation, compromise, and even at times self-sacrificing. Of love, Eric Fromm once said that we must be motivated to know another person's wants, their needs, their feelings, and provide encouragement and support. We take pleasure in their happiness and try not to hurt them. Now, given how narcissistic people behave, these things might not necessarily be on their radar, but do they actually experience or feel love for another person? So to answer that, I'm going to look at the different kinds of love within a relationship and how narcissists might experience that, if at all. So firstly, there's romance. Well, romance is something we all feel and we all do whenever we're first dating, getting to know each other. But narcissists tend to move very quickly and can be quite seductive. They can be very attentive, but don't really take the time to get to know someone. Know about them, yes, but not actually get to know them as a person. So there is no real intimacy or connection, there's no real foundation for a long-term commitment. Now, in relationships with narcissistic people, this is what a lot of people often look back on and call the love bombing stage. They put someone on a pedestal, shower them with gifts, romantic gestures. They're very thoughtful and attentive. And the person on the receiving end falls for this version of them and reciprocates with love, adoration. So in a way, they become a narcissistic supply, because narcissists tend to view relationships as transactional. So quite often it's more about themselves. And as I said, some people look back upon that and realize this was part of the manipulation. The narcissistic person gets positive attention, validation, and sexual satisfaction, but so does the other person. So narcissists can experience romantic love, but they tend to see other people as extensions of themselves rather than as separate individuals. In many cases, this is more about what they get from it, so it can be more about doing romantic things rather than being romantic. Then there's infatuation, or commonly referred to as being in love. So there's a lot of passion, a lot of fun, a lot of pleasure and excitement. When in love, people can be more irrational, decisions can be impulsive, impetuous, and it can be an amazing feeling. We all love to be loved. I think this would be the most common type of love a narcissist experiences. Could be said that narcissists love the idea of being in love, but it is short-lived. When the infatuation begins to fade, a narcissist might just end it. They just might move on to someone else, start the excitement all over again, or they can already be looking for a new partner as that relationship is coming to an end. However, sometimes the infatuation, the being in love, can lead to a long-term commitment. For example, there could be marriage, kids, or they could be living together, have a mortgage together. Now, it's not to say that a narcissist cannot have or be in a long-term relationship. Many do, but they find it difficult to maintain. And this is often where the real difficulties begin to arise, because it's not just about making a commitment to a person, but it's about maintaining that commitment. So they might make a commitment, but don't necessarily honor it. Because in long-term relationships, they lack the motivation to maintain the romance. Remember, they do romantic rather than are romantic, so it's hard to keep up the facade. And with pathological narcissism, what we often see is selfishness, being disagreeable. There's arrogance, jealousy, and envy, and that makes it difficult for them to express love. And this becomes more apparent whenever demands are placed on them, because relationships require levels of trust and intimacy, not just physical, but emotional and even intellectual intimacy, which can bring up feelings of vulnerability, which narcissists see as a sign of weakness. So their defense mechanisms kick in to avoid that emotional closeness. And those defense mechanisms often distort their perceptions of their partner and indeed any of their interactions with their partner. They'll make a lot of excuses just to keep an emotional distance. And it's usually the partner's fault. We'll reach the next level of this relationship whenever you start to, or whenever you stop, whatever. They often reject the partner's attempts to reach out, their suggestions, their ideas, their advances. Any attempt the partner makes to connect is rejected. Okay, and maybe to say yes or to agree to something might feel to them as if the partner has some kind of power, which brings up that feeling of weakness and vulnerability in them, so they shut it down, and hence the being disagreeable. There is also a sense of entitlement. The way the partner reacted, behaved, felt about them in the early days of the relationship, they expect to continue, even though they no longer behave the way they once did. This brings up feelings of frustration, disappointment, and anger when the partner doesn't behave that way. There can also be fantasies of perfect love, the perfect partner, the perfect life, but these are just fantasies. Reality doesn't match, and rather than adjust their expectations, they can feel hard done by and feel quite resentful. Because they don't have a strong sense of self and they lack insight, they often blame the partner for the failures in the relationship. They project their own faults, their own insecurities onto the partner. This is often referred to as blame shifting. And the partner is always kept in a constant state of strain because they will never reach the level of perfection required. Over time, they might become angry, cold, judgmental, especially times whenever they're challenged or if they don't get their own way. Now, that being said, they can support their partner at times and in different ways. Again, they see the relationship as transactional, so it could be because there's something in it for them. Maybe their ego is satisfied somehow, or perhaps it's just not too inconvenient for them. So I would say in conclusion that yes, they can love, but the beginning of a relationship is easier for them because they're excited. They are being fed with constant affection, attention. They're being idolized. But things change whenever the partner wants or needs something more from them emotionally. And although they may have a cognitive empathy and intellectual empathy, that's not really enough for emotional connection. Many narcissistic people lose interest in the relationship whenever the expectation and the need for intimacy increases. They seek power and don't like a lack of control that vulnerability brings. So, as I said earlier, they avoid closeness to try to maintain a sense of control. There can be positivity in the relationship, but this would be more around shared interests or perhaps when their ego is being fed. But because they lack insight, they cannot see themselves as the problem, and will go to many lengths to avoid any personal responsibility. The focus is often on protecting themselves. There's little to no concern for others, even those closest to them. And they like the idea of love, but they struggle where there is commitment or effort required, and many fantasize or even have other partners. Because they will always put their own needs first, they don't really know what a healthy, functional relationship with give and take looks or feels like. Their love for their partner is conditional, but their partner's love for them must be unconditional, and all of these things are not conducive to a loving environment or a loving relationship. And in long-term relationships with narcissists, there can be a level of commitment but no real connection. There's no passion, there's no romance, no love, there's no real interest in the partner. This is often referred to as empty love. The only love and affection they do show is whenever they're motivated to do so. And it can be exhausting work for the partner of someone with very strong narcissistic traits. They feel, among other things, starved of affection, lonely, emotionally and mentally exhausted. So with that narcissistic person, even if there is love, their behaviors ultimately drive people away. And many narcissists often end up with stagnant, loveless, or failed relationships. Even the long-term ones can eventually end because people can only take so much. And they look back at the early stages of their own relationship and wonder where it all went wrong. Not always recognizing that even if they loved that person, their behavior eventually drove them away. So back to the question, did they ever love you? Well, the best person to answer that is you. Looking back at the early stages of the relationship, it might not be easy to recognize if it was just manipulation to get you, or if they ever truly loved you as a person, or maybe they just loved how you made them feel about themselves. And do you know what? Maybe at that time, maybe they did love you. But if you look at how the relationship began to change, was it when you needed more than just a nice present, a good time, or just being in their company? Was it when you wanted something in return for everything that they were demanding? Maybe you need to ask yourself if you felt loved, if you felt heard, if you felt respected, genuinely cared about. When you think about that, when you think about their reactions way back then. Now, I'm going to leave you with something that, just like everybody else, I learned the hard way. Actions speak louder than words. Regardless of how someone might feel or claim they feel about you, if they treat you like you don't matter to them, you probably don't. So I hope you find this video interesting. Please feel free to use the comment box below if there's anything you'd like to add or anything you'd feel comfortable enough to share. There are some interesting conversations started around these videos. But if you liked this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.